Hey everyone, today I wanted to do a video on this unit that we finished recently, and we did this as part of our election study for my 4th grader and my 7th grader. This is called The Great Debates, and it is a problem-based learning from Royal Fireworks Press. Now, I don't believe there was an age specified on this, but it definitely is for older kids. I think you could do middle school or high school. We chose to do it kind of as a group with my 4th grader, my 7th grader, and then my husband and I also participated in it. And this was the first problem-based learning we'd ever really done. So headed into it, I didn't have a lot of knowledge kind of in what this was or even really how to wrap my brain around it. But I will say we liked it. But I got this book after the fact from Royal Fireworks Press. It's called Problem-Based Learning in Your Homeschool. And then they also make one called Problem-Based Learning, I think, in your classroom or something, for more of like a full school classroom as opposed to in your homeschool. And I'm really glad that I got this book and read through it. I found it really helpful. A lot of really good information. You can see I highlighted a lot of stuff. And I feel like now that I have done one and that I've read this book, I feel like I have a much better understanding to kind of move forward and do another one in the future. I really like the whole idea around these, and so we will definitely do more. But I just recommend, if you can get this book, I think it's worth it. For me, it was worth it. This is something that was kind of a very foreign concept to me. And so this really just, I found was helpful. I wish that I'd had this before I did the unit, but it's okay. It probably makes even more sense to me now that I have a little bit of experience with this to go in and read this. I probably understand it a little bit better. But anyway, I do recommend getting this book if you can. So this unit, this particular unit, I believe is designed more for a classroom. They do have a couple that you can get that are just for like a one child or one student setup, but this one worked just fine. It comes with the teacher manual, a resource book, and a problem log. Now, we didn't write in our problem log because I wouldn't be able to use this again, and because I was using it with 2 kids, I just made copies of what was in here. And then the resource book I also made copies out of so that everyone could have their own pack of the materials that were in here. Then I used the teacher's manual because it has a lot of the things that are in the resource book, but not all of them. It has the memos, but it doesn't have like all of the campaign materials and things. So at any rate, so problem-based learning is an inquiry-based. It gets them asking questions that kind of lead them into the study of the content area. And because it's designed to encourage students to ask questions, and then the teacher, or what they call the coach, can really focus on helping them acquire the skills of how to gather and analyze the information. And that's kind of what that talks about here. So they are in the stakeholder role of media consultants for Vice President Richard Nixon. And they're trying to help him kind of fix his image in the 1960 election. The problem starts basically, or the students are brought in with a memo right after, I don't know if it was the first debate. I think it was the first debate that was televised where Nixon did kind of so poorly. He looked sick or ill and, not very strong. And so the students are brought in as the media consultants to help fix his image. And so that's kind of the basis for this unit. Now they give you kind of talk about what your role is as the coach, and they give you some sample schedules and kind of give you the flow of the problem. So you start with the problem engagement. That's when the students are first introduced to the problem. They get a memo that kind of brings them into the situation. And they have this learning issues board that they are going to fill out. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. Now, one recommendation I would have is if you have a big whiteboard, I would put this on the whiteboard because we found that we're constantly coming back to it. And as different wrenches are kind of thrown into your plan, you need to add or change things. And it just would have been helpful to have it on a big board where you weren't going to run out of space and you could really kind of keep track of things. But they have that, and that is in the problem log as well. So you have a copy in here, and then there's a copy in the problem log. So they get their first memo. That's what kind of brings them into the problem. They give you a list of like questions the students should probably ask. And here we have kind of your goals, materials you're going to need, a summary, things you as the coach need to do before class, what you're going to do during class, key questions, etc. And then here's the memo and the learning issues board. And then each section kind of ends with this reflective moment, which I thought was really an important piece of this. And here they give us a couple quotes that kind of relate to what the issue was that you were dealing with. And then the students have to write a response to, like in this one of these quotes, whatever their response is, whether they agree, disagree, what connections they make. But they have these reflective moments throughout based on whatever you were kind of working on. And then they give you a sample of the learning issues board, which again, I think is helpful. For us doing this as a group and my kids being younger, I probably led them a little more than you're supposed to as the coach. But I think that was fine for the ages they are. But this I found to be very helpful. All right, and so then we moved into the inquiry and investigation. We've got what was each camp saying. We've got more memos. You've got analyzing the messages chart. So these, my kids each had their own folder with copies of their stuff in it. And my fourth grader obviously wrote a lot less than, say, my seventh grader did. But we went through different pieces of media, like transcripts or commercials, like campaign ads, things like that. And you looked for what the message was. So what was the source, what was the main issue or the content, what was the tone, what was the message, and who was the target audience, and was it effective? So we did that. Even my fourth grader could do that. Then there was a reflective moment. And again, they gave you some sample, like a sample form for analyzing the message. I found that really helpful. One thing that I did not love was all of the internet sites. This is not a digital curriculum, and I don't think you could get it as a digital curriculum. Some of these links are super long, and to try to type them in was really annoying. And some of them that I tried, the links were no longer active. I wish they would just maybe have have these all somewhere on their website that you could just go and click on them. It would make it a whole lot easier, but that was one thing that I did not like. Anyway, so you continue on with your inquiry and investigation. So I think in this one, we were looking at image in the media, maybe. Oh, no, what each side was kind of saying in their messages to the public. Then we're looking at foreign policy. This one we had to do a lot of research on because none of us, my husband and I included, knew a lot in particular about the foreign policy and the issues that were going on at that time. Here we really looked into one of Kennedy's speeches and kind of picked it apart. What was he verbally saying? What were the nonverbal messages and cues he was giving? And then there was a reflective moment. So we did all of this as a group, which for the age of my kids, I thought worked really well. Here we divvied up a bunch of newspaper articles that were in the resource book. And so each of us took a couple and we read them and we took notes on them and shared them. Here was a Venn diagram where we were looking at information on each of the two candidates' stance on this particular foreign policy issue. And so we kind of listed what they agreed on, what they didn't disagree on, or what they disagreed on, where they overlapped, all of that. Another reflective moment. So at any rate, you can kind of see the way it went. We talked about negative or positive messages in the media. And this was a really good tie-in to what's going on in the media in the current presidential debate. My kids have seen a lot of negative campaign ads, and so we were able to talk about that. Essentially, what we get down to, once we define the problem, we do all of our inquiry and investigation, define the problem, then we have to come up with a solution. And we have to decide what's the best way to fix his image. We have to understand about image in the media. So we had to do a bit of research. And then we had to come up with what were we going to recommend to Nixon. And we were given like a lot of little pointers. Like they said, you know, he's known for not liking to take recommendations. And so we had to come up with like what our recommendations were and how would we present them to Vice President Nixon. And so we talked a lot about it. My kids decided that instead of just presenting them to him, they were going to make a video of what they thought his campaign message should be. And so they made a stop motion movie. I'll try to attach it here so you can see it. It was cute. But they decided for his image, they wanted to focus on him being a hero. And so they tried to do all that through their camera placement and things like that. So I thought it went really well.
Richard Nixon has been dedicated to visiting more than 30 countries to increase goodwill towards the United States. In Venezuela, during a violent attack by protesters after a speech, he calmly instructed the police not to respond to the attack with further violence. He handled a very dangerous situation calmly and diplomatically. Nixon is not afraid to debate other world leaders and defend American freedom, as is evident in his debate with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. Richard Nixon has the experience and the characteristics of a strong leader. Vote Richard Nixon for our president.
Yeah, I mean, they are probably a bit young for it. And like I said, we all participated in it and we didn't necessarily do it probably exactly how it was intended because my kids were a little young for it and because it was our first time. But all in all, I think it went really well. I really recommend this book along with it. We happen to have these two books on hand and my kids love these. So they read these as well. And then when it was all done, we decided to do some artwork to go along with it, which I love whenever I can tie in artwork. So we looked at pop art, which, you know, was popular during this time in the 60s, 50s and 60s. We watched a video. We read a book about Andy Warhol, and I showed the kids some more pop art style kind of campaign art that I liked. I have an Obama sticker from years ago that is kind of done in that style. And so I shared that with them, and then we tried to do our own. And so they could pick either Kennedy or Nixon. And actually everyone ended up picking Kennedy, which is funny because his is the image, Nixon's was the image we were trying to kind of fix. But anyway, everyone picked Kennedy. They did not like this project, the painting. They loved this. They did not like the art project. It was very out of their comfort zone. My daughter said the whole thing was horrifying. She did not like it, but I'll show you anyway kind of what they did. So that's my daughter's. That one was mine, and that one was my son's. So at any rate, it was fun. My plan is to hold on to this, and we will pull it out again in 4 years, the next presidential election, when they're older, and do it again. And also, now that I kind of got my feet wet, we will be doing other problem-based learning units, but this was a good one to get us started and really timely with what's going on in our country right now. So that's my review. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below.